overcoming fear and anxiety, gaining confidence, public speaking, better preparation and practice, the power of storytelling. All this and more. Welcome to the High Achievers Club.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Bill Gannon, and I am proud to be around the High Achievers Club here on this beautiful Thursday. We are representing you with panelists from all over the globe. Thank you very much. We have myself and Robb Holman in the United States, Andy O'Sullivan, our founder in London, England, and Stefan Bollinger from wonderful, am I correct about Sydney, Australia, Stefan, or do you want to correct me?
Oh, just about 1,000 kilometers away from Sydney, so relatively close on the map.
Whereabouts exactly?
Well, it's called the Gold Coast. It's the tourism capital of Australia, close to Brisbane.
Got it. Brisbane, not Brisbane, by the way. You can easy giveaway on that. And Melbourne, same way. You just swallow the boon. Got it. Well, listen, everyone, we're delighted to have you here. This is the High Achievers Club on Public Speaking. This is a Thursday event that we do live on LinkedIn, so we're glad you're with us. And this wonderful panel of experts and I assemble each Thursday to impart different aspects of public speaking, what helps, what hurts, what are the things we should be thinking about, what are the things we might avoid, all in the name of giving you the tools, the tips in order to be a better public speaker. For some of you tuning in, that means I've never even gotten up and said hello in a group. For others of you, you're already pretty good speakers, but you're always looking to put another little edge, another little advantage on there. We're prepared to address all of those. So we're delighted to have you with us. If you're not a member of the High Achievers Club, you can certainly look us up on Clubhouse. And if you on LinkedIn, we will have the link there as well. But the High Achievers Club is great. It's founded again by Andy O'Sullivan. And it's all again about the mission of making you and all of you better public speakers. Panelists, can we all give a hello to our LinkedIn viewers? And may I say, this is, again, I've given you the prep on the panel, but I'd love to do a quick once around and let folks introduce themselves. And then we will delve into our topic of the day, humor. Yep. You've all heard about it. You've all seen it. You've heard it. Just how do I do it, though? That's what we're going to be tackling today. But let's do some intros first. And maybe a quick aside, a quick thought on humor. Andy O'Sullivan.
So introduction being Andy O'Sullivan. I am a 5-time best-selling author of books on public speaking, pitching and presenting. And I can do that because I never had any confidence, any knowledge of how to speak up. And I was always worried about what I was saying. So therefore, if I was always worried about what I was saying, trying to get the words out, being humorous wasn't amongst the top things that I was trying to do. In fact, most of the time, I was so in my head and so panic-stricken, even giving a presentation, I was pretty boring, I've got to be honest with you, if I say so myself, because I'm so worried about the words. So for me, and what I love doing now is first working with people to get that confidence so they can bring out their personality. And if you can bring out your personality, then you can be in the moment and then you can find that natural humor, which I know we are going to be exploring today. So that is what I do, work with people so they can uncover their confidence, bring out their personality, and of course, we're going to touch on, do that humor as well, Bill.
Thank you, Andy. Let's bounce over to Australia, shall we? Stefan, a brief introduction, if you would, and a kind of a one thought on humor.
All right. So Stefan Bollinger, as you would say it in Switzerland, or as my mom would call me, I have a different background than Andy. I ended up on stages pretty quickly, but never funny in my own right, because I did musical theater for 15 years. And what you're doing on stage is you're delivering lines that other people have written. And then it's a question of, have they written those lines well? Well, then you come across a certain way. If those lines are not written so well, you kind of look like an idiot. And I've learned my lesson. If you do this for long enough and you've done a good amount of different productions, you get a pretty good feel of what it means to connect with the audience, but never my own words. So at some point, I've retired. I made, well, 35 years old. Retired sounds a little bit young, but I decided I can afford to focus my love on photography, which was my hobby, which now has turned into a 20-year, quite successful career. Nevertheless, once you have that thing on stage going, that microphone in your hand, and you see how you can have an audience that may come in a mixed mood, and you can release them after an evening of entertainment in a very happy mood, when you can see how you can turn frowns upside down, it never lets you go. So that's why I'm still doing presentations. I'm still talking on stages. And in terms of humor, as I said, I've done a lot of different productions, some more serious, some more humorous, but they were never my words. But the beautiful thing about that is, because you don't question the actual quote unquote joke, you can now practice few things. You can see how, if I deliver that line, and it's always the same line night after night, this way, how does the audience react? If I deliver it this way, how does the audience react? If I use this kind of body language, how does the audience react? And it's quite interesting to then find a way over the years that you feel like, I think I now found a certain formula that is not over the top. And then nowadays, of course, I try to make it my own, since now I'm speaking my words. But it was very interesting 15 years to learn those small little things, and sometimes fall flat on my face, realizing I thought that was a good idea, but it didn't work at all.
Thank you, Stefan. Yeah. the very clear result of, that seemed a lot funnier in my head than it did there. But totally get that. Hey, Robb Holman, how about a quick intro, a comment on humor, and we'll kick it off for our group.
Well, I've got to jump in right where Stefan left off. In his own words, just a few moments ago, really what I am about is turning frowns upside down. If you can't tell already by my passionate, high energy and enthusiasm, I am a lover of people and life. I've been a professional keynote speaker for over 20 years. And basically what I do in a nutshell is I help inspire leaders how to learn and lead from the inside out. So I teach, I inspire, I encourage, I turn the frowns upside down. Now, for me, just a thought about humor. I feel like there's just a huge difference between being funny and having fun. I'm just not funny. I'm just not. But I am this. I love to have fun. And I'm free to be me. I'm liberated to be my authentic self. And in the midst of that, so I'm told, Stefan, maybe you agree with this? That, I love to have fun. I love to infuse life into conversations, into talks, and into presentations. So I'm here to help, hopefully, at least a little bit, serve you in that way today. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you, Robb. Yeah, and you are a definite broker of fun. There's no doubt about that, and could not agree more. Now, I'm going to let our viewers in on a little secret. We are going to have a late arrival in the room here. And when our person arrives late, we are all going to go into freeze mode. So don't think you have to disconnect. We are just going to see how long it takes our new arrival to recognize that we are just posing and not frozen. So don't give us away, anybody, but this is how this is all going to go. In case you see it, you just want to be ready for it. And team, we want to hit whatever it takes.
And don't mention it. The moment Andy sees that he comes in the room, even if he doesn't show up yet, he can already hear us. So preparation of jokes, timing is everything.
So we have to cut the volume early too. Okay, very good. Great segue, Robin. Thank you, everyone. I know, right, Stefan, this thing's going to bomb. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Here's the point. It's going to be disastrous. But the greatest part about humor, and I think Rob started to touch on it. You know it when you hear it. You know it when you see it. But giving it, delivering it, that's the real challenge, right? Because we see it. We know when something tickles our humor. We know when a joke makes us laugh. We know when somebody said an interesting aside. But boy, when we try it, we think, right, go to jokes. So let's dive into humor versus funny, right? Fun versus fun, as you said, Rob. A long time ago, I used to be the cut up in class, and I used to interrupt the teacher, and I would make all cracks and that kind of thing. I know that's a little hard to believe. And my report cards all said subject matter B. I had my C's, I had my A's, but I was that classic Bill's a much better student if he would just learn to not interrupt everybody. And I'd always get like low marks in conduct. And later on in my life, I remember telling my dad when I was a young man, I said, you know, Dad, it's a really cool thing to be funny. And he said, actually, Bill, the best compliment is that someone can say that they have a really good sense of humor, which is a better asset than, quote, being funny. And I didn't quite get that, but in time, it's become quite clear. And I think that's part of where we are in public speaking. Funny is not our goal. Let's talk about who's funny. Comedians are funny. Am I right? That's why we go. So let's talk about, it doesn't matter who your favorite comedian is, but just think about a comedian and say to yourself, why are comedians on stage? Andy, why is a comedian on stage?
You see those comedians, they're on stage, right? Obviously they're funny. We enjoy listening to them, right? If we didn't enjoy it, we'd either change channel or wouldn't go and see them. So they're picking up things which are usually everyday situations, things that they've experienced, they've seen, that we can all relate to, and they pick out the humor. They find the humor in those everyday situations. And therefore, there's that connection between what they're sharing and them and us. We can relate to them, which I think is a key point with these comedians.
Rob, why is a comedian on stage?
To make us laugh, to make me laugh. It's therapy for the human soul. So that's where my mind goes.
Stefan, why is a comedian on stage?
To make money. As well, it's a job, but they're delivering entertainment and they are holding up a mirror. And the more the mirror reflects us, the more we laugh.
So what's the difference between a comedian and a singer? They're both paid. They're both entertainers.
Well, you create an emotion in the audience. The emotion is different, but the outcome is the same. Hopefully people leave happier than they walked in. But all you do is you create an emotion within the audience.
What emotion?
Well, with the comedian, you have a great time. With the singer, you can sing a sad song, you can sing a happy song, you can make the audience dance, but you are delivering, and that is the job as a public speaker. I guess that's where you want to go, Bill, is we have to hand over and produce some kind of emotion within the audience. I believe that's the job of any performer if you stay within the entertainment industry.
So you're not going to give me my line. Death of a salesman is emotion, correct? On the stage?
What?
Death of a salesman.
I never heard that.
That creates emotion on stage, right? Arthur Miller's play.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
For a minute there, I thought he froze.
How about The Music Man? How about that musical? Does that create emotion on stage?
Guess so.
Okay. Rob wins. Comedians are on stage for one reason and one reason only, to make people laugh. That's it. That's their job. There's no such thing as a comedian who did a great job in a 2-hour, 1 hour, 45-minute set that did not have people laughing. That's it. They're paid for laughs. Why do you come see a comedian? Your audience expectation is to laugh, be amused in some way. This is a contract. A comedian is a contractual setup. It's real straightforward. They're there to make you laugh, and you probably show to the club to laugh. She gets paid to make you laugh. You are probably paying at the door or minimum drink to laugh. It's a contractual expectation about both the audience and the speaker, right? Which is why we have to now talk about public speaking. Oh, let me ask you a question. Is it okay for a comedian to insult anybody in the audience? Rob.
Insult within reason. I guess this is a sensitive issue in the United States with the Will Smith situation, of course, Bill. But nonetheless, I think we have to look at the definition of what insult means and how deep. But
yeah, not assault, insult.
All right, there you go. Thank you for that. By the way, I think within reason. Some tend to go a little over the edge with it, but if it's fun and not terribly personal in some regard, I think it's okay. Is that a correct answer?
Andy, is it okay for a comedian to insult an audience member?
Yeah.
Hi, Arnold.
Hi, everybody. I thought everybody was freezed up.
Did you?
That's what I thought. Yes. You were asking a question to Andy.
Just to laugh. That was for you, Arnold. Just so you know.
That deliberately, just froze for you.
And then Bill didn't have the patience to wait how long it would take for you, Arnold, to feel like you need to save the moment.
By speaking and checking. That was just us having a bit of fun over that confusion, laughing.
Arnold, glad to have you with us. We're in the middle of talking about comedians actually on stage and what they do. What's the purpose of, what's the job of a comedian on stage, Arnold? What's the one job?
Well, ask Stefan. No.
We did.
I will say to entertain and to serve your audience. That's what a comedian does as well. So they have bought all a ticket just to be entertained. So you as a comedian need to entertain people,
Yes.
and try not to insult or to slap people in the face like Will did. Just keep it, neutral. Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about skin colors. Just a simple, you have a lot of jokes. You don't need any cultural things. So that's a little bit my thoughts. And Stefan is like this. I know. Listen, if it's a Dutch audience, right? We can make all these fun. Well, it's indirectly not really fun. It's a little bit of racist, but it depends in what language. It's if you speak in Dutch or German or English, you can interpret it wrong or right. But just be careful, and that's all. Serve, be careful, try not to insult, keep it fun. Back to you, Bill.
Well,
You think
the reason why I did this, just to explain, sorry, Bill, is the reason why I didn't answer that question of has to make an audience laugh, and I said has to entertain the audience, because I believe in stand-up comedy you have such a variety. Some who at times actually raise some serious issues, but they deliver those issues in a funny way so that you laugh about, but nevertheless they might actually give you something, if it's smartly done, to think about. So I think it goes beyond just making laugh. And if you take someone like Ricky Gervais as example, he doesn't stop because of religion. He doesn't stop because of Nazis, etc., etc. For him, it's fair game. It's fair game. Now, when it comes to insult, which Bill is just a question he just asked before, most comedians would apply the rule: if it is in service of the rest of the room and they get a laugh out of it, they're more than happy to sacrifice one person or someone in the front row. What most people don't understand, for a Netflix special or so, the front row will have a conversation with the producers beforehand. So they're not thrown in because it is a professional production. It looks like they're just out of nowhere picked, and they are random people, but they had a conversation with the producers beforehand, even more so to sign a release contract if they are depicted.
And Bill, that's why I love what Stefan's going with that, because that's why I said it may help to define, insult, which is like a high, or a disrespect towards an individual. How far do you go? Do you cross that line? I think Stefan's getting into what that could look like, which I think is helpful too. But that's why I was careful to answer that, because I'm like, ooh, you have to navigate through those waters very gently, especially into, I think in any day and age, but especially in today's day and age where, depending on culture, subcultures, et cetera, it can get a little dicey.
Well, there's no question about it. And in a society that we move into today, the sensitivities and such are much greater. The short answer, I think, to can a comedian insult an audience person is yes, with all of the qualifications that you put under that, all of it, okay? Being careful with it, not being over the top with it, being well-timed, does it serve the rest of the audience, are all important factors, but they are in the toolkit. I want to switch over to public speaking. If we agree that making the audience laugh, even with all the qualifiers that we felt we had to add to it, ultimately, comedians are measured on laughs. They're measured on the fact that people are getting the audience laughing and involved. What is the mission of a public speaker in general? Mission of a public speaker. Try to keep this under an hour for the answers. Okay, what is the core goal of public speaking? Andy O'Sullivan. What's the mission? The one rule.
Generally, it is to share. We're there to share information, to enlighten our audience in some way. And if we can do that in a way that is entertaining so they pay attention, then they will receive more value, and therefore everybody will achieve more success.
Stefan.
Well, in my case, it would be infotain, but it very much depends on the subject. It can have so many things, but I believe as long as the audience leaves with something in their hands, to either react to it, to think about it, to inspire, to motivate, to educate, to what it so depends on the context of your speech.
Arnold, what do you believe? The mission of, what's the contract between public speaker and their audience?
Well, just to be short, I see myself as a leader on the stage, but also as somebody who serves the audience. So two things for me is, well, as a purpose for public speaking is, well, first to serve, but also to let's say help others through whatever story you're gonna share. And this is how short I can be. So back to you, Bill.
Rob, what's that key contract between a public speaker and audience?
Relaying a message to where it lands on receptive hearts.
Nice. So can I summarize connection in all of that? Can we get a collective nod that the real critical mission, any speaker, is to connect with their audience? Fair? A lot of colors and tints to that. I get it. Now, one way to connect that I think a public speaker and a comedian don't necessarily share is knowing the audience. By that, I mean, the comedians go from, they may do one club a night and the people come in, they can't possibly know who the people are. They go from Detroit to Cincinnati to Omaha, they keep the tour going. They know they live in these cities, but they're, bottom line is they're delivering that information and they're still going for laughs. One thing I think we can agree with in public speaking, rule number 2, is know your audience, right? Public speakers are going to do a much better job of connecting if they have a sense of knowing the audience they're speaking to. Quick round the table on that. Rob, agree? Knowing the audience?
Absolutely. as much as you possibly can beforehand.
Arnold?
100%. 100%.
Stefan?
Sure, guess.
Andy?
That's the shortest answer I've heard from Stefan.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It's almost like a therapy session. It's fantastic. Andy?
Totally. I think a comedian would have a set routine which they would deliver. And as a presenter, speaker, I might have a presentation, but it would be totally adapted to the audience by finding out about them. So it's very customized to them.
So let's go back to, thank you. So let's go back to rule one. We've already, rule two is already, we know we're going to, rule one about connecting, right? And knowing your audience. The ways we connect, we have a number of choices available to us, right? The words, the message we used, if they were read out of a computer without any of, we would still know that that content is the content. Then, of course, there is your voice and how you inflect it and how you use it and how you raise it, lower it, pause it, and so on to create more dynamics to those words. Then there's body language, the lean in, the hand gestures, the laughs, the facial expressions, maybe even tears. Who knows? Things happen on stage. But the point is you have all these tools, words, body language, voice, and then there's their overall structure of it too, right? How you opened it, how you delivered the middle part, and how you closed it out. So these are all the dynamics of that public speaking model. These are all the places we get connection from. Interestingly, these are all the places that humor can come from. Humor comes from words. Humor comes from using your voice or body language or your overall structure. And that's what we want to dive into. Let's talk about just words and language, not our voice, not our body. Let's just say we had to deliver it. What are some of the ways you can extract humor from just the words and vocabulary? What are examples? I'll throw one into the room. A story. A story can be very amusing. It doesn't have to use voice inflection, doesn't have to, but the words can be. What else can generate humor on just words alone? Popcorn style. Who wants to jump in?
I'll jump in. I think a question, Ken.
Question's a great one for humor. Do you have one off the top of your head, Rob?
Not at all.
How about why is it that, right? The Jerry Seinfeld. Anybody notice why, and he does the observational humor, right? Why are there still busy signals, right? Don't we have enough technology that we should never hear a busy, why does a fax machine sound like it does, right? Why does it have to have that piercing, terrible sound? These are just sort of interesting, kind of humorous things that get people just thinking. Stefan, what's another example? Stories, Rob said questions. What's another way you can get possibly humor with just words now? No acting, and just the words.
Well, good example for me is what we are doing and what we have experienced over the last year on Clubhouse, where you have exactly only the tonality of your voice, where you don't see anything. And one of the word plays for me is so powerful that you just either take a word, phrase it slightly differently, move it in the wrong place of the sentence, and out of nowhere something quite ordinary becomes hilarious. Or someone says something and you repeat it word for word, but you just change one word. Small little word plays can get an instant laugh. So
wordplay, I like that. Like switching something up, or you hear something and you reverse the words and it gives it a different meaning. So these are humorous little tools. Andy, what jumps to mind when you think about just using words now?
I think it's how we react to what's going on around us. That's not part of our script, our rehearsal, but how we react. An example that springs to mind is once when I was on stage speaking, and all the lights on the room suddenly went to maximum power, right? So on me. So it's just by looking up and saying "Alleluia," got everybody laughing, right? It's just in that moment that all the lights came onto me at maximum power. So a simple word, but it's how we reacted to it that gave the humour to it.
So
I've been hurt.
right. The angels have sung. Arnold, where are you on just? These are all great examples and other examples of just using words. Arnold, where does that humor come in? We've heard about questions. We've heard about stories. We hear about the reacting to the moment. What comes to mind?
When things goes wrong. So
Explain. Yeah.
let's say, especially when it comes to presentations, you have these clickers, or you have, let's say, a moderator who's helping you with it, and then poof, something doesn't work. Now you can or stay there and do nothing, or you can just be like try to be a little bit funny, like, oh, okay, technologies these days, right? You can just make fun of the situation. And what Andy just mentioned, situation is always the right place, because believe it or not, there is no perfect public speaking event or presentation. There's always something that goes or too quick or wrong. Just play on that, and it worked. Believe me, you have the audience with that.
I love it. And I think reaction, dealing in the moment, is one of the real ninja skills of public speaking. Because it can be, as Arnold says, can be very uncomfortable if your slides don't all of a sudden advance. We've all been there. We actually literally have to open up the PowerPoint and make a tweak about something or in the moment. And how we deal with our connection, which is our contract to the audience during that time, separates the pros from the starters.
Just a quick one, Bill.
Please.
You know that Steve Jobs went on stage and he was trying to show the iPhone, and then he couldn't show anything because the internet was so slow. And then he made a comment like, if you guys just get off of this whatever wireless. That was a right moment, and it was a funny moment. He was frustrated, but the audience took it like, oh yeah, that's funny. But yeah, it's a really good example of something goes wrong on the stage, and then yeah, he didn't care. He just blows it off.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right, Arnold. And I want to bring it back to humor, not funny, right? He's tapping into, this isn't a joke. This is like, if you'd get off the darn Wi-Fi, I'd be able to run this thing, right? It's kind of taking a reality, but delivering it in a way that is lighter. It's tapping into everybody's, and we've said this before. Stefan, I believe, said, hold up the mirror. When we see ourselves behaving in an odd way and the speaker has the ability to read it, play it, and have people, that is me. Yeah, I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi. That's not a joke. That isn't the funniest thing you've ever heard, but it does make you go, it's that self-awareness, and there's a humor line that goes through it. And that is part of reacting. Now, those are words. What about our body language? What if? Here we go. We're all given the same script. Stefan, I can't imagine how many times you've been through it. Listen, I heard this recently. If you have the same director, the same play, the same setting, the same number of audience members, the same music background, and you have a chance to hear an 11-year-old from Robb's daughter's middle school deliver the lead role, or Meryl Streep, who are you going to be more likely to connect with? And except for Robb, who will be more connected with,
I was about to say that,
with his daughter's friend, the rest of the world will obviously lean toward the more professional speaker. And why? Because they've taken all the same lines, all the same words, and done something else with it. And this is where I get into body language delivery. Let's talk about body language for a minute. Stefan, how does someone on stage get humorous with body language?
Well, for me, there's two options. It's either slapstick, which you do something completely over the top on purpose, or you make it look like it is completely natural, but going wrong against your will. These are the two options.
Examples, please. Slapstick. And I know you shared a story. I'm curious if you bring it back, but go ahead with a slapstick example.
Well, I don't know if, I mean, there has been one scene where I needed to stand on a broom that came up and slapped me right in the face. And there's, if you take that one example, there's two ways to play this. You can play it in a way that the audience sees that this is meant to happen. The character knows it's going to happen. Nevertheless, it still happens. And then Schadenfreude, with that beautiful German word, Schadenfreude, the excitement and enjoyment of someone else's misfortune kicks in. It's like when we see a video of someone falling down the stairs, and you know it's hurting that person, but you're still cracking up laughing, even though you know you shouldn't. It's that Schadenfreude kicking in, the enjoyment of someone else's misfortune. The other way is to play it that you walk in and the audience believes that you didn't see it there. And then it hammers you in the face. And then the Schadenfreude becomes even greater in the audience, where now they feel sorry for you, but they're trying to hold the laugh back, but it's still coming up. And now what do you do with this? And if you do it the second and the third time, and you really make the audience believe that you didn't see it 3 times, they're all on the floor, and you probably have a broken nose, but that is a different story. So these are two ways for me, but I think where it becomes most successful is if it comes across as natural as possible, because we are all commissioned to react to overacting. If something is too obvious, if someone, and that's, I think, coming back to your Meryl Streep thing, is, you know, in young years, we're doing everything too big, and we're trying so much. While sometimes if you just hold it back, if you take it down a notch, if it becomes a natural reaction, then we're actually creating that human connection, because now you're believable. And that's what really great actors can do. They fall in love night after night with someone on stage, and the audience buys into it. Or they're falling over something, and the audience buys into it. And that's what the 5-year-old can't do. The 5-year-old, of course, we would all be big fans of Robb's family on stage, but they might just go completely overboard. They don't bring it back to where it really sits, I think.
Andy, body language. Give me a humorous use of body language.
To me, it's always been first of all, my humor would always be in the moment. Right? I don't plan humor. And on the odd occasion I did when I first started speaking, I would be after I had done something and it was funny. And I thought, great, I'll add that next time. And I would do it, but then it wasn't in the moment and it wasn't funny. So I never now do that. So to me, it's in the moment. And then usually, if it's with body language, it would be quite open and expressive. As an example, on Monday, I was doing a presentation and I was explaining something which was on the screen. So I was doing the good hand gestures, pointing out, and then suddenly in the moment with all my hand gestures, it suddenly occurred to me I was behaving like a TV weatherman, you know, presenting all the way they run across the screen. So therefore, I made a joke about that, and then actually I amped it up a little bit more. That was humorous and got people laughing. So it's in the moment, and then pushing out more.
I love that. So you saw yourself doing this, and the next thing you know, you're saying, you know what, folks, I think there's a weather front moving in here.
Yeah.
And we have a low pressure system coming up.
There we go, yeah.
And that locks it. So what you're doing is kind of almost making fun of yourself, of your own hand gestures, but not afraid to do it because they're working at the moment. Robb, great example. Robb, another example. Let me throw one at you. How about the shocked expression? How about
oh my goodness.
The face's body language too?
Yeah.
What
it is. I love, to Andy's point too, I love to be expressive, animated. I mean, that's my personality, but I, as some say, I put that on steroids, meaning that I over embellish my facial expressions. So if it's a rolling of the eyes, I'm going to be dramatic with it. You know, and in that, I'm already a passionate person, but now it's over the top to emphasize a point. And not only that, I'm going to up the ante on my answer. So I'm going to take it to a whole other level for those listening and receptive. I love to have the audience reflect it as well. Let's all try that, or let's all stand up at physical activity.
Right.
So now it's just not me being over the top, animative, and expressive. Let's give this a shot too. And now what I'm doing, I'm passing the baton to the audience in a highly experiential way. So now it becomes more caught than just taught. Back to you, Bill.
And that's the fun and the funny part, which is great, right? Everybody participates and it becomes a group thing and they start to feel it among them. Arnold, give me 2 ways to deliver the line. I'm sure you've all sat through some PowerPoints that are painful, with and without body language. Let's hear it without body language. Just say the line.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna let me
Come
give
on,
a
Arnold,
couple of
you can do
examples
this.
first.
This is you, baby. I know you can do it.
Well, I tried to. Well, let me just, because I had something in my head and I need to share this.
I love it. Bring it out.
Yes. Okay. So we know in the 1900s we had these Charlie Chaplin. We had, well, of course, in the 50s, 60s we had Mr. Bean, who are really, well, not using voice but more the body language, and we all love that because we there was no text, no nothing, but we all knew what was happening. Now we have, of course, we can use our voice, and of course, if you don't use your body language, if you just stay there and doing reading the news, everybody knows it's boring. There's no energy in there. Now with the body language, I'll put a plus on there: body language plus attire, because when you have, let's say, you have let's say you have amazing energy doing a presentation. So going back to your presentation, having amazing energy with your presentation, but you're there with a ripped jeans and in just a shirt, you lose authority. So attire is also really important. It could be humorous, so you can have something funny that you try to, signal to the audience, but you can also have something like having a suit and being the authority, and people will go in that kind of body language. So I always say, like, when something goes wrong with a presentation, believe me, when you have a suit, nobody's going to interfere because they're afraid that if they're going to say something, you're going to hit back. But when you have something funny, or you have ripped jeans and your presentation goes wrong, people are going to say, like, you didn't practice yesterday, did you? So they try to interfere. So there's sort of levels. I always say body language plus attire, what indirectly gives you is sort of like, let's say, give the audience a feeling who you are, and of course how you express things. I like to use my hands constantly, but you always have people, they don't like the hands, and they just having the face expression, what already let's say flow with the audience. So yes, something wrong, sorry that it wasn't in one line. If something goes wrong in a presentation, it depends. Body language plus attire. Back to you, Bill.
Nice. Thanks, Arnold. I think of Simon Sinek, who always goes with the black turtleneck. That was also the Steve Jobs moniker. Consistent attire look. That way he neutralizes that and puts more emphasis on the language. And yet I've seen performers come out with a beautiful suit on and one sleeve is missing from the jacket. It's literally a bare arm. You can't help but to start and making no reference to it at all, just delivering it, and then maybe refers to it 15 minutes into the bit, and there comes the big yuck, right? Even though you've been inside laughing about it the whole time, it finally brings it out. Andy, I just want to do a quick acting thing with you, if I could. I'm sure you've all sat through presentations that have been miserable, right? That's the line. I'm sure you've all sat through presentations that are miserable. Let me see it with and without the facial expression. Go ahead.
I'm sure you've all sat through presentations that are miserable. And with facial expressions, is that right?
Yes, then bring it.
Okay. I'm sure you've all sat through presentations that are miserable.
Right? There's your eyes, your voice, your hand. I'm sure, let me ask you, the audience, I'm sure you've all sat through presentations that are miserable, right? So this is where humor comes from. It can come from your voice. It can come from words. It can come from your body language. You wonder, how can I be funny? We want to take the funny and kind of put a big red X through it, right? We're not interested in you being funny. What we are interested in doing is giving you tools that when you talk to the audience and you address them, you're engaging, and you don't have to use them all. In fact, it looks really ridiculous if you use them all at times. And I think it was Andy in the very beginning who talked about natural personalities. The goal of the High Achievers Club when we talk to you about public speaking is to take your natural gifts, and we want to bring tools to them to help just paint the picture a little more vividly. If your life is blues and purples and aquas, we're not here to throw orange and rose and all kinds of yellows at it. We're interested in your blues, your colors in a way that make them more vivid. Okay. So these humor are just different ways you can do it. And I know you've been thinking about jokes and things, and just don't think about those, right? There are quotes that can be, who can ever forget when George Carlin, the famous comic, or whoever you like, Mr. Bean, like you said, Arnold, when he said this line, and it's funny, but you didn't say it. You're not trying to make a joke. You're just relaying it. Okay. And that's another way to do it too. Relay other funny lines that other people have said and use them. That way the audience sees you using it as a tool. You're not trying to be the star. You've handed off the credit of that particular line to someone else. So you get that. I'm not trying to be a peacock here. I'm just bringing information to you, but it can still be humorous. It can still get the audience engaged. I think all of this really boils down to, and there's so many more ways to get humor, and we can't possibly address it in the limited time we have. But if you just do nothing else but think about, and let's review questions, just thinking voice, questions, right? Famous quotes from people. Funny or not, but something that gets the audience in an enlivened way. Dealing in the moment. If the lights all of a sudden flare up, and the notion of saying, I've always wanted to be on Oscar night, or just something in the moment, or if you see your hands flailing around and you make a self fun critical comment about it, these are humorous ways to do it, right? These are because you're doing it and you're allowing the audience to laugh with you and a bit at you, but at your own prompting. This is humor that really works and is natural. You just have to find the one that's right for you. For the voice, we can say a line straight, and we can say a line, and you've all heard, come here, right? Come here. Come here. Come here. These are all different, the same words. They're all developing different emotions in the audience. You have to look at your speech and see where these voice inflections can bring a little humor. There may be right there. You may want to add something, but either way, how your voice goes can really help the audience. Or I don't know if this is really going to help the audience or not, but this is what I want to say. And it gives them a chance to go, oh, okay, what are we ready for? This may be honest and funny, or humorous, or it may be honest and I don't know what's coming. But how you do it with your voice is so important. And we didn't really talk about overall structure much. And I know, Rob, we have limited minutes with you left. So I thought I'd do this before we have to say goodbye to you. Your final thoughts, Rob, on either voice, body, whatever. The number one rule you have about humor is?
Well, I'm going to come full circle with what I said before. There's a huge difference between being funny and having fun. The more free you are to be you and be in the moment, yes, some things could be prepared and planned for, but in the moment as a present presenter, be yourself in the midst of that. Have fun, because when you do that, humor is going to find its way to you. You don't have to find your way to humor. And I will end with this, Bill. Speaking of a quote, Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld, okay? When she ran out of toilet paper in the stall, she turned to the person next to her in the stall right beside her and said, "Can you spare a square?" microphone drop moment. That's all I got to say.
It was classic. Hey, Rob, I know you have to run, so when you do, you do. But thanks for being with us today. I appreciate
You're the best. I could stay for another couple minutes. Joy to be with
good.
you. Great facilitation day, Bill. Thanks. I learned so much from you.
Fantastic.
Do you think it's appropriate after his toilet issue trouble that you say if he has to run, he has to run? Do you think that's timing?
And that would be in the moment. And that would be, folks, hearing the line before and having the line after. And this is
And you're not supposed to say toilet in the US. You have to say restroom.
or the loo.
Now I feel like I got to say, instead of sparing a square,
Is
you have a
the
whole
loo
roll.
Is the loo not in vogue anymore? I don't know. I lose track of stuff. Stefan, I want to drill down a little bit more on natural personality and being yourself. About that and humor. How do the two come together? I don't really know. I don't know how to tell jokes. I don't know. I want to give my talk. Just counsel somebody on that one or two key rules about bringing humor to their speech.
Well, first of all, I think before you go on stage and try anything, you have to become okay with your mirror image at home. And you have to do a little bit of soul searching. Let's be honest, some people are just not the joking kind. And some speeches would be absolutely destroyed if you would try to invoke any humor. If you go up on stage and you talk about human trafficking and you go in and says, if there's a black truck, the audience will probably attack you. So
Right.
I think it very much has to do, A, with what you're talking about, and B, who you are as a person. If you are a person that in normal life, like Rob always says, find that watching paint dry is something exciting. If that is your nature, you will find joy in small little things. And then it's a question of how confident are you in the moment to bring that in your speech, because it's obviously off script, or if you leave that away. Then I think with experience also comes this extra flair or ability to smell the flavor of the room a little bit. What is the energy in the room? Is something appropriate right now? Are they sort of in that mood where something will most likely stick, or are we in a sort of a mood where even if I try to be funny, it probably will not come across that way? But if people don't do the soul searching beforehand and realize what kind of a character am I, because I know brilliant speakers who are not the funny bone kind of personality, and if they try too hard because they believe they have to be like Cynic is not a funny person, but so many of his comments that he makes are very, very funny, but they're also intellectual. They're well placed. They're perfectly in, and they're part of his script, I promise you. But they're so well practiced and so well placed, but he doesn't sell it as a joke.
Right.
It's just because out of the situation and the topic that he covers, it comes across and creates that laugh. But it would just as well work without the laugh. So I think we have to do some soul searching. And I think Andy said that many, many times. He doesn't feel that he's funny.
Andy, are we breaking up with Stefan's audio?
Yeah, I have the same feeling. And this is not a joke. This is real.
Yeah. Stefan, you all of a sudden got crackly and broken there. Yeah, still.
He sounds like a Dalek.
Yeah,
Let me just let's just hit mute. I appreciate what you're saying, though. I'm going to pick up the ball from that and go over to Andy for a quick one. So well said, though, by Stefan. It isn't putting a joke in the middle. It's learning about and practicing this content. When we talk about humor for folks, try it. I don't care if you try it on your dog, but you have to hear it come out of your voice and see if it's well timed. And the mirror, I love the mirror idea. See if it even looks like you when you say it. it will matter greatly to how the audience receives it. Andy, you've had this situation. It works one time, it doesn't another. The old let me try this again doesn't always work. So much of it, though, is a question of then going back and refining it, then going back and thinking about it. Maybe it can't be repeated verbatim, but maybe there's a piece of it that I can build on. Andy.
Well, you know, one of the things I would say is that I might say, and I used to do this a lot when I first started speaking, say, you say something in the moment and everybody would laugh and you try again and they don't, because it's not there.
Right.
But then in a way, that kind of is like material that I would always have in the background, and you can use it at another time when it may be appropriate. But for me, humour is always in the moment. I've never been one for planning a joke. I've never been one for trying to find one. And the number of people who have said to me, what's a good website to go to for jokes of my speech? Right? And they just want to think there's one website to go to, pull off a joke and throw it in. And I'm never in favour of that, especially when sometimes people say they want to have a really good joke to start with, open with a really great joke. Now, for me, that's not something I would ever do. I'm not that good at telling jokes. And I would say that if you tell a joke right at the beginning, one of these ones you've taken off Google and it falls flat, or people even worse go, where does that leave you at the start of your speech? You're on the back foot. So I'm never one for just finding a joke, sticking it in there just for the sake of having a joke. Yep. Find something that fits, bring that humour in, uncover the humour in these stories that we've been saying. And that's the way generally is how I do it. And by the way, the one thing I'd add as well, actually, just on that, is I can give the same speech. And I had one I can think of, right? I gave it different audiences. It must have been on the 5th occasion. They were laughing at things that nobody else had laughed at, right? And it's being aware of that and not being thrown, but they laughed. Great. Just pause and let them laugh. Happy they're laughing at this story. Nobody else has ever laughed, but that's okay. In the moment, they thought it was funny. So to me, if they laugh and I don't expect that, fantastic, I let them. And if I say something I think is funny but they don't laugh, I'm also okay with that, right? You just carry on smoothly, right? Sometimes that happens, but it doesn't throw me. Whereas if you said a kind of knock type joke and it falls flat, it's obvious.
Yep.
And that then affects the whole presentation and your credibility.
And thanks, Andy. And if I may, that's that whole thing about a joke and a laugh thing again. I mean, there's only one reason to tell a joke, and that's to get a yuck. But humor is so different than that. To Stefan's point with Simon Sinek, it's in there, but it can still be, it's an intellectual drop of an aside that was so elegant, you would just move on, and yet it raises that humor dial. The humor gauge goes up in the listener's mind. But it's not a laugh. It's not a yuck. It's not a guffaw. It's just, what a clever little aside. Yeah. And it's seasoning. It's when we cook, we want the right amount of seasons and a variety in just the right way, and not heavy doses of chili pepper thrown in. It's the elegant versus the gaudy kind of a thing. And I think that's really where we're at. Ernal, some final thoughts as we come to the bottom of our hour on this. There's people out there who, and Stefan started to allude to this, they may not just be very funny people, or they may not even know that they're capable of raising a sense of humor in people. Should they simply abandon it and not give any attempt to, and I'm assuming these are public speakers already, mind you, should they not leave it alone? If you're not comfortable with any bit of humor, don't even try, or have we uncovered ways that encourage them to maybe try something by incorporating it, by trying an experiment? What's your feeling about it?
Well, I will say, if you're going to go to one of these gigs from these people, you know what you're going to expect. So it's a choice. You can or listen to the humor, or you can just don't go. But for the people who, for example, don't know these speakers, and think like, oh, let's jump in the deep. I will say this is from two sides. If you're ever going to go to people, let's say to speakers or to, I don't know, famous people, do a little bit of research, right? And see if it's your cup of tea, as you say in the UK. But if it's about like your boss, or let's say your friend or somebody who you not really, because you always know what kind of what you get from them. But try not to, I say it, try always to be, if you're ever going to listen to somebody and you think, and you can see this a lot of like with like comedians on Netflix, they make well, let's say amazing comedies, but the wording they use, it's or you're open for it or you're not. So I always say it's a choice. You can listen to them, you can't listen to them, you like them or you don't like them, but don't blame the comedian, because they have, that's them, that's their personality, and they're not going to change because you don't like it. So I will say, just do some research before you go, and it's your cup of tea, yes or no. But I think the comedian or whoever's going to be on stage, you don't have to change, only be respectful. Back to you, Bill.
That's an excellent answer to a question I wish I asked, but that's irrelevant. Here's Stefan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this answer. Become a politician. I can't even say that word right, because I mean, who wants to say the word politician, right? But Arnold, if you ever want to run for office, that was a masterclass of not answering the question but still making sense. I think this is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you tried to be funny, but you were, and you did it so calmly and so much under the fingernails. It's like taking a hot needle and sticking it underneath while nothing in the face reacts, but you see that there's smoke coming out of the ears. That's how you performed this non-answer to the question that was never asked, but it was amazing. I like it.
First of all, Stefan, I've never put a hot needle under anything, but I'm sure that was a precious moment for you. The next question I have, though, is this. Stefan, can you please kind of wrap up our audience with this? If it's in yourself, is there space to try things in what we've talked about if you don't really consider yourself a humorous deliverer?
I think there is room for trying out things in everything, but there's also limits to everything. If you 1.22 meters tall, there's a very, very high chance that you will not be signed for the next NBA team. If you are generally someone who is very, very serious for personality reasons, maybe because you don't have the confidence yet, maybe you're still at the point where you take yourself too serious and you don't want to fail, I think you have to play to your strength. Confidence is something that I believe comes over time. Andy is very experienced in speaking. So once he gets to the moment when he realizes that there is some deep pressure system creeping in to his PowerPoint presentation, he has that confidence to then making that comment. But he has that confidence because he knows if that doesn't land, it will not kill his presentation. Because so that means that he doesn't take himself so serious that he would now be thinking for the rest of his presentation, oh, damn, I messed this up, and what do they think about me, and everything like that. So once you get to that point that, you know that you can handle defeat, so to speak, something doesn't work, and you can continue, and you can still make sure that the presentation works. Yeah, try out things. But if you're not at that point, when you are at that point where you eat yourself up because something doesn't work yet, leave it out. Protect yourself until you develop that confidence. And if you are just a funny bone, I could not give a presentation without making some stupid comments once in a while. But that is my nature. That is me. Some land, some completely bomb, but that's okay because I've learned, and I'm old enough, that it's not about me. I left that ego at the door a long time ago. I'm there for the audience. And so if something doesn't work, that's okay, which gives me that confidence to try things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, it's all about the audience. What do they take home? And when we are at that point where we create that courage, we say, okay, today I'll try this. I would always leave the jokes at home. Never, don't, unless you are a stand-up comedian, this is your job. I would say just forget about the jokes altogether. But humor, yes, that is based on situation and confidence. And then if you have that, go for it. Last thing I want to say, and then I'm definitely quiet. I know Arnold is already checking his watch. When we always say learn about your audience, I think also learn about your competition. Because if you are at an Apple presentation and the slides don't work, yeah, we shouldn't have bought that thing from, what is it, Microsoft? You know, if you know who you're talking to and what their competition is, all you need to know is in the right moment, you just drop the competition name, you will get a laugh in the room, or you'll be fired. It's one or the other. Yeah. So preparation, I believe, can also be extremely helpful when it comes to situational humor. The more you're prepared, the more you know. I'm not saying prepare your jokes, but just know what's going on. But I think it's a question of confidence. And if you have that confidence, try it. If you don't throw yourself out of the window. Deliver your presentation and make sure the audience is happy.
Yeah, we thank you, Stefan. We're not here to tell you to try all you speakers. We are not here to tell you to set your presentation afire and burn it to the ground with humor that you don't feel comfortable with. That is not it at all. We just want you to be cognizant that humor is a fabulous connector of people. But there are so many colors and nuances to humor that we want to give you some toolkit here to give you some ways through voice, body language, words, stories, structure. There are so many ways to dabble. So dabble, give it a try and rehearse and enjoy yourself. And with that, I'll leave you with this closing line. It's a little story I use, and it goes right to Stefan's point when I'm coaching on doing networking introductions and so on. And the story goes that there was a time in early Google days where Larry Page, who was the CEO of Google there with Sergey Brin, the co-founders of Google, back in the early days when Google was only 2 or 3 buildings big in Mountain View, California, the story goes that Larry Page goes into the men's room. And he's washing his hands, and there's another young engineer washing his hands next to him. Now, there you are as a young engineer. You're working on Gmail at the time. You've been there about 3 years, and next to you is the CEO, and he's washing his hands, and you're both sort of seeing each other in the mirror, right? Larry Page dries his hands. The guy dries his hand. He says, "Hi, by the way, I'm Larry Page," right? Trying to be very. Now, most people say, well, I'm Bill Gannon. I work on Gmail. I've been here 3 years, right? And instead, here's what happened. Larry Page goes, "Hi, I'm Larry Page. What do you do?" And the person said, "I'm whatever his name is." And he says, "I'm saving people from Outlook, one user at a time." And Larry Page tells this story consistently because he said it was an example of a very powerful introduction that wasn't going for a big yuck, but it was mission centric. But talk about knowing your competition, Stefan. He throws it out there, kind of backs over it in his car and makes a bit of a lighthearted comment about it. And Larry Page to this day talks about this introduction at times when the speech calls for it as a very powerful connector. So I'm going to leave you with that. It is in the moment, but it's also something you can have in your pocket and ready for the moment. So this is why we encourage you to at least experiment with these things, push your limits a little bit. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. You don't have to do it when you're live on stage, but you might find new little openings and new little ways to nuance that speech that you may be given the same way for a long time, or you're one of those folks that's giving it and didn't really know where humor belongs. Hopefully here are some ideas they can give you. I just want to thank our panel, Arnold, Andy, Stefan, Rob, who had to leave us. I very much appreciate your time today, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, from all around the globe to give your perspectives with the High Achievers Club. We're here every Thursday at the same time. We'd love to have you down the road with us. Tell your friends if this is where public speaking comes to get better. We'd love to invite you in. With that, I'll let you folks on mic, and we will wrap this session up. But once again, thank you one and all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.